Art Jeffries, and Matt Pangrack. BTL is brought to you by Lowrance, Lose, Strike King Lures, Bass Cat Boats, Ducket Fishing, Spro, AFCO, Sunline, and TH Marine. BTL coming at you. Good Wednesday, everybody. Welcome once again to BTL Bass Talk Live, where we're going to talk bass fishing and anything else that we want to talk about. Matthew, how you doing?
We got a field.
Yes, we do. I have not dissected the field yet.
Well, it's a very familiar field, but there's some big names that are added, some unfamiliar names that are added.
Yeah.
We're talking about the 2020 Elite Series field, including the 2 Legends exemptions, making their, can we call it a triumphant return?
Sure, why not?
Making their triumphant return to the Elite Series in Gerald Swindle and Brandon Polinick, as well as the Open Anglers, a handful of which are anything but rookies, and in the article that Bass released described will not be considered rookies, as in, you know, Buddy Gross, Brian Schmidt, Austin Felix, John Cox, guys like that. But we got the Bass Nation guy from Oregon who won the Bass Nation, a couple new guys from Wisconsin. Yeah. Seth Feider has a buddy now from Minnesota and Austin Felix out there. So definitely some non-traditional well, I guess everywhere's traditional now, but I'm just saying some more northern and western additions to the Elite
That's good.
Series field.
That's a good thing, man.
Yeah.
Very, very good thing. I got to get my level. I don't know what's going on with that. All right, real quick, a couple of housekeeping items. I received some emails and texts on the Drew Cook show on iTunes.
Yeah, something was.
I have no idea what happened. So here's what. Yeah. So what I did was this morning early, I resubmitted that show to iTunes. So for those folks out there that were unable for some reason to get that in your feed on iTunes, it says replay by the side of it on the title on the iTunes selection. So hopefully that will take care of that situation. The other thing is, and some folks may realize this, others may not, but the comments on YouTube made a policy change that I knew was coming, but I didn't know how to address it. And they've got this kids thing going on to where you have to indicate every video that you put out there whether or not it is appropriate for kids. Well, I went under the assumption, Matthew, that it meant, okay, are you throwing content out there that is okay for kids? And I would check the box, yes. Well, what happens when you check the box, yes, the comments don't show up.
Oh, so you have to go back in and get the...
Well, I did it for the first show, and then obviously the show for yesterday was fine. So in order for the comments to show up on everything that we've done, they don't have like a one-fits-all kind of switch to where you can flip the switch. At least I'm not aware of one. So I would have to go back to every single video and check that box or uncheck that box or whatever. So from this point forward, at least into 2020, the comments will be there.
Okay.
All right?
Good deal.
All right. Now, the other thing I want to mention, dude, I cannot believe the feedback that I got yesterday from the Medford Meteor fans out there. I had like 5 emails, and then somebody, who was it? Do you remember the guy's name? Sent a well put together novel about his interaction with the Medford Meteor. We're talking about Marshall Holman, one of the greatest bowlers of all time. So we have some Marshall Holman fans out there.
Very cool. Some bowling.
Dude, he is one dude that and we kind of got into this conversation a little bit before the show. He was not very media friendly from
approachable.
Early in his career. But what ends up happening, the dude ends up being part of the media because now he does broadcast on CBS and the CBS Sports Network.
Irony. One more comment real quick before we move on. We do have a great show today. Jacob Wheeler.
Going to be on live via Skype.
The MVP.
Yeah.
of the Bass Pro Tour in 2019 will be on live via Skype, but there is also a very intriguing addition to the Elite Series this year. Guy fished against in the Costa Championship.
Really?
Actually had my phone with the rookie maneuver with the... He actually had the exact same thing happen to his motor in the Costa Championship that mine did with the shift actuator.
Really?
And then he recorded it on GoPro, had ended up having a great tournament. But Kyle Wiltjer.
All righty.
Now, there's something cool about Kyle Wiltjer, because in 2012, I believe he was either 18 or 19 years old, and he fished the FLW Pro Circuit now. And on Table Rock, in early March, he brought in a 24-pound, 8-ounce limit on day 2 to be 19 years old, leading the FLW Tour going into day 3.
That's a huge bag on Table Rock.
That's a massive bag. Now, he struggled on day 3 and 4. He only had like 9 and 6 pounds.
Yeah.
But I kind of heard that name, and that kind of jogged my memory, because we were doing daily stories then. We were calling him up after every time and attending and stuff. So it's kind of cool to see him 12, 13, 14, 7 years later. He's been very active in the BFLs and stuff, but has had a year on tour, very successful in the Costas, but still a young dude with a lot of experience under his belt. So interested to see how he will do on the Elite Series this year.
All right. What else going on, Matthew?
We got some time to do this, and I talked to you a little bit about this before. It's about the extent of the planning that we do going into each BTL. I said, I get that. Sometimes I listen to a lot of stuff on YouTube and podcasts on the way, because I live an hour and 45 minutes. It kind of gets me prepared for the show. And I ended up down this rabbit hole of YouTube videos, because I just listen to stuff that I can get audio on.
Right.
I listed, and there was a 2-part. It was like 30 minutes of reporters asking dumb questions to NBA stars.
There's probably some good ones in there.
Yeah, it's a lot of Russell Westbrook, a lot of Kevin Durant.
Popovich?
No, it's players.
It's players only.
A lot of LeBron James, a lot of Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Where they just ask him, stupid questions. Like, so you give you one example. There was a college one, and he said Baylor got out rebounded when they were really good, and he said, "Well, how does whatever Pepperdine out rebound you?"
Yeah.
And the Baylor guy goes, "Well, the ball shot, and you miss it, and then a guy goes up, and if he's good for him, he grabs it with 2 hands, and he comes down, and he possesses the ball. They did that more than us. That's how they out rebounded us."
Yeah, it's true statement.
So it got me thinking. The bass fishing, I guess, media fraternity. I mean, the credentials are not as stiff as it is to be able to go into a Final Four or be able to ask LeBron James questions in the locker room. Would you agree?
No, the local guy, whatever, man. If you had a blog, you could show up and after the weigh-in ask anybody a question.
So it got me thinking, as we like to relate non-bass fishing sports to bass fishing.
Yeah.
What are some of the dumb questions that the bass fishing media, me and you included, have asked these guys, and are there common ones?
The common one is when the local guys show up, the local television, the local radio people, the local newspaper, when newspapers were more apparent, 10, 15 years ago, is after day 1, what do they ask, Matthew?
What are you catching them on?
Yeah. How are you catching your fish, and what are you using? And back then, nobody knew. It was a big secret. And the guys would just look at him and go, a lure.
Yeah.
I'm
not saying anything.
Yeah.
Really? You have any take?
Yeah. It's day 1. Do you not understand? I've got 3 days left. That kind of response. So I would say, from a local perspective, the local guys, they would always ask that one question.
Yeah.
What are you catching them on? And some guys were cool about it. Like, I remember, who was it? Shaw Grigsby. Epic professional answer. He went into this big, long thesis about pattern fishing with nothing that was related to what he was doing. Just went on. But now, you can't really do that because there's so much live content out there. If somebody asks you that question, how are you going to respond? Some guys tell the truth. Some guys take it as an opportunity to promote their sponsors and say what they say. The seasoned people, probably the dumbest question I ever asked was Kevin Van Dam. Yeah.
When was this? Like early in your days?
Super early.
So you're
when
talking
I was still out there solo.
2006.
Yeah, very, very early. I was still by myself. You weren't even around. And I asked him, I go, so Kevin, what can you tell me about the crankbait you're throwing? And he turned and he looked at me and he goes, how do you know I'm throwing a crankbait? Well, are you throwing a crankbait? No. Next question.
Okay. One that I'm always guilty of, and I always, starting after day 2 even, or even day 1, are you thinking about the win?
Yeah.
Is that not a common question?
Yeah.
Well, hell yeah, you're thinking about the win. The only thing you ever do is think about trying to win. Of course they're thinking about, like, what can they do with that question? And you're looking for something about how much the win would mean to them and stuff with the leading question. But, I mean, I'm ready for the guys to go, well, hell yeah, I'm thinking about it. It's $100,000 in a blue trophy that I've never had before.
Yeah.
Now, what was the one we got? What was the one with the deal with Kevin Short?
What was the dude's name? I don't
Rob
remember.
Russo.
Yeah.
He was new.
Yeah, and it was after he won. It was on the final day. And
On
Kevin Short won. It was on the Mississippi River.
Okay.
And Russo was going on and on and on, and he was asking these questions that weren't really concerning what happened on that final day.
He was looking for backstory to write later on.
Yeah, and here we are, crunch time, trying to get the story out and trying to get the content out, and he's asking questions about what happened, you know, at 2:00 on day 1 when he decided to eat a sandwich instead of make a lure change or something like that.
In your media giant mind, they were irrelevant.
Totally irrelevant with what was taking place, dude. If you wanted to get that content afterwards, there's nothing wrong with that. Great story there. But pull him off to the side when the core media is trying to get the story on what happened on that final day. Mm-hmm. So finally I said, are you serious? Are you going to continue to ask these just useless questions? I think is the term that I used.
Mm-hmm. And I could see you asking that.
I was pissed. Mm-hmm. And then what did I do? Do you remember what I did?
I don't know. I just know it involved
I went and got Bowman.
Oh, because he had just started working, just like I had just started. Yeah, I remember that.
So, yeah, it was kind of ugly.
Divulged. So the other one that I always think is, how many times has an Edwin been leading, a Skeet, an Aaron, a Kevin been in the mix? And what do we ask the guy who's either leading or chasing him? Are you worried about Kevin?
Yeah.
Are you worried about Aaron?
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of a valid question until I kind of started fishing like the upper tier tournaments the last couple years. Hell no, they're not worried about it. They're going out trying to catch their fish. Like, how are you supposed to answer that question? Like, I'm pretty terrified. I might not sleep at night, and even if I catch him, he's going to beat me. My innate fear of KVD is going to prevent me from catching more fish.
Yeah.
Like, hey, that's a stupid question that I ask all the time.
Question.
So the more I started thinking about it, the more I realized we ask a lot of stupid questions to these fishermen. And the fact that they don't respond, like a lot of times you'll get the Russ Westbrook and Steph Curry and that where they just look at you and go, seriously?
Yeah.
This interview's done. Next question. These guys are saints when it comes to answering stupid questions for bass fishing media, me and you included.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of that segment. I would ask Jacob Wheeler that when we get him on too, because that dude's probably been asked more questions than anybody that's his age. Because he's always getting interviewed because he's always at the top.
It's not easy. I mean, people think that just because you fish, you're going to know the right questions to ask, or it really becomes a technique that you have to develop. Would you not agree that over the years you've kind of developed a style to interview these guys?
Absolutely. And I will say there is one question leading into a tournament after guys are leading that is the most under-asked question, but is the most important question that if you follow this, and I understand in the grand scheme of life, whether some dudes catch it about day 2 or 3, whatever, but you follow entertainment like you do anything.
Yeah.
The most under-asked question that can tell you the most information and allow the anglers to expand on it in any way they want to. What do you think that? Do you have any idea?
I don't know.
Do you understand the fishery? Now think about that.
But that's close-ended, though. That he could go, no.
That tells you a lot, though, because you can catch them. Think about this. You can catch a monster bag.
Yeah.
But if you don't understand the fishery, don't understand why it happened, that kind of falls under the luck category.
Yeah, but I would rather, not that that's not a great question, but I would like to understand why they think that.
Talk about your understanding of the fishery.
Yeah.
There, just rephrase it. But I'm saying that to me
question.
is the most, because before the tournament, you could have guys who catch them during practice but don't know why they catch them. Then if the fish change, they're not going to catch them. That's why you have guys with great practices who have crappy tournaments. But if you understand the fishery, you're more likely to be able to make those adjustments, macro, micro adjustments, and refine those fish. During the tournament, you're more likely to be consistent if you understand the fishery, as opposed to if you just caught them or you're just not catching them. I know a lot of guys who I feel have good tournaments with bad practices, but each day of practice, they understand the fishery a little bit better.
All right, let's say somebody goes out and they catch 8 pounds on the first day, on day one. You ever ask somebody, Jeff, can you explain why you only caught 8 pounds?
Yeah. That's a horrible question.
I know.
If you're in that position... Remember, we did a whole series called What Went Wrong, where we called guys out and badgered them why they didn't catch them? Yeah. That was educational, because you're talking hindsight 2020.
What would you change?
But I mean, in the heat of the moment, I mean, these guys give great answers to you, and you know inside they want to be like, no, dumbass, if I knew I caught 8 pounds, I'd have done something different.
That's the point.
You think I just went out there and was like, I'm going to shoot for 8 and then see what happens?
That's not a good day. Not a good day at all. So, I don't know, man. There's a lot of entertaining stuff out there that the media provides. And then I don't think we have any situations. We may, at least my history being in the game, I don't think anybody out there has the Russell Westbrook, who was the writer here in Oklahoma City that he refused to talk to.
Oh, yeah, I know who you're talking about.
God, what is his name?
He's big time.
Yeah.
The glasses.
Yeah.
Always looks over the glasses.
I mean,
Barry Trammell.
Barry Trammell. That's it.
I can't believe I knew
That's
that.
impressive. Made national news, and Russell Westbrook just said, hey, I'm not talking to you. And what was funny is Trammell kept asking him questions. Hey, I just want an answer. I just want an answer. And Westbrook
Now, I
wouldn't
will
give it
say,
to him.
so of all the time standing behind the stage that I did from 2007 to 2016, 17, I had one guy. It was early on, probably 5-6 years ago. Rick Morris comes off stage, had a great day. And I just hadn't interviewed him before, because he'd been on the Elites and he'd been gone, and then he came back and stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, man, great day. Let me talk to you about your day. And he kind of looks at me over the visor, under the visor. Who are you? I said, I'm out with Basso. He goes, what do you want to interview me about? I said, well, I'm writing an article for Basso. You had a great day. I'd love to put your stuff. And he goes, when's this going to be out? I said, tonight. He goes, okay. And he goes, and where's it going to be? I said, Basso. Oh, okay, with Mark Jeffries. Yeah, I'll talk to you. But that also got me thinking, how many of these guys come off stage? There's local reporters. There's everything going around. You don't know. Heck, it could be the cousin of the guy who's in second, and he mines you for all this information.
Could be. Could be. All right, everybody. We are wrapping up week number 1 in 2020. Coming back with the MVP.
We'll try not to ask him any dumb questions. No, it was not in relation to anything that had been asked on the instant feedback or any specific report. If you notice, we were pretty self-deprecating in that segment. I was just talking in general as a whole, and I think it's permeates the entire sporting world.
Yes. Yes, it does. All right. Taking a break. Coming back with Jacob Wheeler. Everybody stay tuned on a Wednesday.
You are serious about catching fish, that HDS is a dead giveaway. You've got the best fish finding sonar money can buy. Time to build the ultimate fish finding system with live sight sonar. See what your lure is doing in real time. Watch fish strike as it happens. See for yourself. Take the Live Sight Sonar 30-day challenge. If Live Sight Sonar doesn't help you find and catch more fish, send it back, no questions asked.
Yeah, you care about gear ratios, inches per turn, and ball bearings, but most importantly, you want reliability and dependability in the equipment you use. Lew's doesn't cut corners when it comes to the gear they build. The new Speed Spool LFS is the best $99 reel in the market. Go see for yourself.
We've paired one of the most iconic hulls in the history of bass boats with a proven lineup of trusted accessories. We're bringing you best-in-class value and performance, leaving others in your wake. Turnkey value, turnkey performance. The Pantera 2 is an overachiever in the 19-foot category. Once you hit the throttle, you'll feel the rush, and there's no looking back.
Kevin, what are you doing here?
Oh, I'm just filling in for Billy.
I need a 660 shad crankbaits in the Series 5 model.
We're out.
You're not out. You got all kinds of them right there.
We're out.
Kevin, I need 6.
Have a lollipop.
I do not want a lollipop.
Have a lollipop.
Do you have it in sexy shad color?
At Duckett Fishing, we have assembled the top pros in the country to help us design rods to give you a competitive advantage. Castability, strength, durability, action, sensitivity, weight and balance, and consistency. Combine that with the best warranty in the industry, and you have rods that are pro-driven.
Duckett Fishing, pro-driven.
I want to share with you a new product we got coming out from Sunline. This is the FC leader size spools that we have now. We've gotten a lot of requests for this. A lot of you guys use fluorocarbon for leaders only, myself included. And one of the problems you have is when you have a 200-yard spool, that might last you 2, 3, 4 years. You might even lose it before you even get done with the spool. So we've gone to a little smaller spool. These are 50-yard spool sizes. You know, that way you're not holding your line on forever. You can keep your line fresh, use it when you can, stores real easily in the boat. We got all of our popular line sizes that you're used to with our Sniper from 5 to 14 pound. If you guys are looking for a line that you're only tying for a leader, go check out Sunline FC Leader 100% fluorocarbon and give it a try.
Blue Water by TH Marine, offering LED lighting solutions for your boat, trailer, truck, ATV, and so much more. Engineered and built to be rugged with waterproof and submersible options. Designed for easy installation, Blue Water is available in a variety of colors and styles. All backed by a limited lifetime warranty. Blue Water by TH Marine.
The name SPRO says it all. SPRO stands for Sports Professionals. When you look at the pro staff that SPRO has brought on board over the past 15 years, it's been pretty incredible. I mean, one got it just then. From the development of the rock crawler to the McStick, from the Fat Papa to the Little John series, when you tie a SPRO bait on, you know it's been designed by a professional to get the job done.
I got my power pole down, stuck in the mud in the bottom of the lake, sitting so still in the wind and the waves, could even be a hurricane. I got my power pole down.
Meet AFTCO's iCast award-winning Hydronaut waterproof system. Hydronaut features a 20K 100% waterproof shell, double dry cuffs to keep water out, speed vent hood engineered to prevent neck strain at high rates of speed, AFTCO exclusive Cyclops tactical camera mount, Comfort Flex shoulder straps for all-day comfort, outerwear that you can count on. The Hydronaut waterproof system by AFTCO. Any fish, any water.
All of us on the Pro Tournament Trail use Gamakatsu hooks.
Why?
Because they are absolutely the best.
It's not about how many bites you get.
It's how many you put in the boat.
Gamakatsu makes hooks for every fishing style.
We didn't come this far to lose fish.
Did you?
For more information, visit gamakatsu.com.
All right, we are back on a Wednesday, wrapping up the week. And, man, we got our ass absolutely handed to us last night in basketball.
Is this the same team that you started the year with? It wraps around, or is this like the first game of the season.
No.
Oh well, you said
no. The season starts back in.
I mean, to put
September.
it kindly, you said you didn't have high hopes for this season.
Well, we're very young, and when you go up against 6'10", 6'7", 6'6", it's kind of hard.
It's a character building season. Have you ever gotten interviewed for that? We're talking
what?
about interviews for as a coach of the team. You're the assistant coach.
Local newspaper. Like they do a preseason thing, and then there's a couple of magazines here in Oklahoma that do kind of a preseason.
But like, there's
scouting reporter.
There's not like a reporter waiting outside saying, "Jeffries, why'd your team get their ass kicked by 30 points?"
Not even in 6A, which is the highest level of basketball in Oklahoma. No, they may call up the phone and do a weekly story or something like that, but that's it.
I gotcha.
No. All right, man. We are ready to go to our special guest here on Wednesday, the reigning MVP.
He's kind of flexing a little bit with his decisions.
He's got a ton of hardware. Wait till you see this backdrop.
Skype location decision, just a minor flex there. I mean, I can't say I wouldn't do it if I was in that same position too.
Jeez. All right, let me get him queued up here. Let's see. Jacob, you there, man?
Yeah, I'm here, guys. How y'all doing?
Doing great. Let me get the video feed queued up to where everybody can see that very impressive backdrop there. There's a lot of hardware back there, dude.
Yeah, my wife actually set this up for me, so it's pretty cool. I shoot a lot of YouTube videos and stuff. Obviously, if you want, follow the channel. And so I just do a lot of like how-tos right here, sit at my desk, just talk about what's going on. And so I'm like, why not? You're on Bass Talk Live.
If you had to pick one, and you can't say, oh, they're all equally important to me. If you had to pick one trophy behind you and could only display one trophy, which one would you pick?
No doubt the All-American, because that one was the opportunity that I had that, like, basically if I didn't win that event, I don't think I'd be fishing professionally, and I think that was something that it means so much to me because of that, it's just sort of a story of my life.
That was 2011, right?
Yes.
And then, okay, so yesterday's show, I just thought of this. Jeffries and I were talking about, has there ever been like massive contract for a guy who's just coming out? So at that time, you had never fished professionally. You won the All-American. And then, like I said, remind me if I'm correct, but you were on the cover of the FLW magazine with the title, The Next Big Thing, or the next...
Yeah, the next big superstar, like over here.
There it is, right there.
There it is.
Literally, yeah.
That right there is a great example, Mark.
Yeah.
Of kind of taking an amateur, because we were talking about, has anyone signed a big contract, straight out of like Auburn fishing before they were even proven, and here you are. I mean, you're an amateur, you win, and then bam, you're like kind of the chosen one there.
Yeah, I mean, it was something that when FLW put that out there and they shot, I was like, whoa, I don't know about that, sort of deal. Like, calm down, guys. But I was grateful for the opportunity to be on a cover, of course. That was something that was big for me. And, it wasn't like my phone was ringing off the hook right after the All-American that I won. I had a couple of companies that rapidly jump on board and gave me an opportunity, and still with them today. So, and that's something I've had companies that had supported me, like Basket Saver, from the time I was 18 years old. They looked out, but it wasn't like it was like, oh, here, Jacob, we want to partner up with you right away.
Wow. I mean, could you get a better? You win the All-American. They say that you're the next superstar, and it wasn't like they were just saying, hey, here's $40,000. We want to sign a 5-year deal with you before you even fish the tour.
Yeah, that wasn't the way it was.
He's laughing at that.
Well, I'm just saying, that's literally what we were talking about. Has that happened?
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think that this game will ever get to that point? And before you answer that, I want to address something real quick that I should have done at the beginning of the show, Matthew. I got a response from a fan that was talking about, we'll never see this kind of money, and the anglers will never see $1 million contracts and all that. That is not what I was saying when I went on my rant. What I was saying is it would be cool to see the opportunities as you progress in your career to be able to sign those contracts. And is that ever going to happen in professional fishing, to where you see these guys come up through the high school and through the college ranks, that once they prove themselves at the college ranks and high school ranks, are they going to be able to sign deals with companies just like Luis Robert
before they fished on the BPT or the Elite
Series? Before they ever make
Series.
A cast on any of the pro series. What are your thoughts, Jacob?
Yeah, I definitely think so. This is a thing. Like, a lot of companies are looking for new blood and new opportunity. This is a transition in the sport, and a lot of guys that are legends of the sport are tailing the end of their careers, and new guys are coming in constantly. So, I mean, I don't think. This is the thing for me. I had to start with a company, and I had to work my way up, and it was. As long as I did my job and I continued to do a good job and work well and fish well, I was rewarded for that. And the companies that I didn't work, I worked hard for them, and it didn't, escalate a little bit more. I ended up, parting ways, and it was just sort of a thing. You got to work hard and you got to it was something that a buddy of mine told me. He said, listen, you get paid on what the wave you leave behind. You don't get paid on what you might do. And so I felt like that was so great. And if you're not getting that, if you're not getting that opportunity, another company in this industry will swoop you up and try to, offer you more.
Not the case in professional sports, though, is it?
You get paid on potential.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And so that's the tough thing here is I think that, especially like I grew up in the era where social media became such a big deal, and that was where before it was all about TV time and hey, were you on TV this weekend, or how those companies really valued your partnerships. And now it comes down to how big's your fan base? What are you doing off the water? Are you catching them on the water? And so there's a lot of things and variables that come into that never did before.
All right, man. At least on the BBT, you had about, I think, a little over $200,000 in earnings in 2019. Had a really solid season. What do you take away from 2019 that you're actually going to maybe utilize once again in 2020?
I mean, what's crazy is you go through these, you go through a full year and you're like, man, it was exciting. Had a lot of great opportunities, had a lot of great tournaments, and I had some tough ones. And I think you learn more from the tough events than you do the ones you actually win. The one at Conroe for me was a really one that I learned from, and I analyzed that one a lot because I'm like, if I would have just slowed down, if I put a little bit more time into it. So the ones that I get irritated with more than anything are the ones you don't do well in, and you try to sort of, where did you go wrong? What decisions did you make that weren't the right ones, and what could you have done differently to put yourself in a better position? And so that's sort of like my thing I'm taking into this year is just keeping an open mind, which I try to, and I feel like I'm more of a generalist than a specialist in any particular technique. So I try to sort of keep an open mind, and I think that's the biggest thing. I think my hard thing is slowing down.
Wow. Hey, somebody on the instant feedback wants to know, did you guys go tarpon fishing on your vacation? Where was that?
This is crazy. So we're dropping a video. Mark Daniels and I and our wives, we went down to the Dominican Republic, and so we spent a little vacation time. We actually went mahi fishing, went offshore, and then we went to actually in our resort, in the middle of the resort, there was like this mile-long pond. Okay. And I looked down there one day, and I brought my fishing rods. You guys know me. I can't even deal with it. Mark didn't brass me. I'm bringing a couple rods. I don't care. We got to have it. And I look down there, and there's tarpon swimming in the middle of these little these this resort, like in the middle of the resort. And I'm like, wow. So I tie on a swim bait, and I throw out there, and I hook this not a big giant tarpon, but like a 10-pound tarpon. It's jumping everywhere. And I'm like, Mark, we got to shoot a video. So one morning we get up really early, and we go out there and shoot this video of him and I. I think we caught 20. We hooked 20 tarpon.
Catching Edna's pets. She's been feeding them since they retired in the late 80s after long hard. She's probably hand feeds them off the dock.
It was pretty legit. I had a lot of fun with that one.
Can you say what resort it was? Somebody wants to know.
It was the Hard Rock.
Okay.
So we ended up getting kicked out of not fishing there because you're not supposed to.
See, I was right. They're Edna's hand fed.
But it was a deal where it was there was no signs, and then finally we walk around all these bridges and stuff, and then finally one says unauthorized personnel only, in one bridge. And I'm like, come on. So actually we have a video coming out with the girls too, my wife and Mark's wife Tanisha, my wife Alicia, they're fishing against each other, and we have some money up for grabs on that. So there's we bet on our wives to beat each other. So it's going to be interesting.
What is that, the deal where it's better to ask for forgiveness than ask for permission?
That one, I never seen a sign that you couldn't fish there before I made a cast. And what was crazy is when Mark and I would fished, there was employees coming by yeah, that's awesome. So they're like, you need to catch this fish and bring it to me. And I'm like, okay. So obviously it's good. So we fished all that day and never had any issue. And then we went back that morning and fished for 3 hours with the girls. And we were pretty much done. We're like, oh yeah, you can't fish in here. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. We were leaving that later that day. So I was like, okay.
All right, man. We have had obviously a couple of guests on BTL this year so far. Both of them, they're not scrambling, but I would say that there is
urgency.
Yeah, of getting their boat ready, getting their gear ready. What's kind of the status on all your stuff?
You're always in that scramble mode. It's jersey, boat, truck wrap. I already have my truck wrap or my boat wrapped and my boat rigged. I just sort of have to fine tune it. So this year I was just trying to get on top of it a little bit more. And so I'm messing around with a lot of things. I've been out in the garage organizing tackle. I normally use January for a prep time. It's just the time of year, we're getting all our tackle together, and I got crankbaits laying everywhere, and I'm going through them and wiping them off and maybe replacing some hooks of the ones that I'm going to be using. And so then, on my truck wrap, everything's looking good. I probably will have it done here in the next week. And then on top of that, I'm going to probably, jerseys. I feel like I've actually got a good step in the right direction on this one.
Definitely wanted to talk to you about is that your most recent, aside from Tarpon Champ, your most recent honor, which would be being named the MLF Bass Pro Tour MVP. And just to clarify, I'm going to read how they have these performance ratings. Is it like the WAR or what is that, the QB rating or something?
Yeah, I don't know.
So they had the 12 guys. The MLF performance rating is calculated, this is a gem, is calculated from an average of the angler's total weight and total fish caught compared to that of the top performer in each round of competition he fished in the 8 regular season events. The better these anglers' weights and number of fish caught versus the top finishers in the 16 possible rounds they could fish, the higher their rating. So everyone's super clear on how they determine that rating now. That being said, you win the MVP for the BPT. Did you get anything for that? Talk about what that means. It was a fan vote. Kind of a feather in your cap.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was cool to have a fan vote, and I feel honored to have an opportunity that so many people had voted for me. But MVP was cool. I think that was the biggest thing for me. It was just sort of a deal that a lot of my fans, a lot of people voted for me, and I really appreciate that. We ended up getting a trophy. I'm actually going to get it here this week. So I'm excited to add that to it, but it's just more of a thing that you have a big appreciation for the people that follow you, because obviously those are the people that are voting for you and your fans and your family, and so I think that's a big deal. You want to you obviously want to grow your fan base, and you want to, and for me, the big thing this year has been, the last couple of years has been YouTube, and a lot of the kids, a lot of the people that watch me day in and day out, made sure to vote. It was something that was important.
All right, man. One of the things that I've seen over the years of covering this game is the guys that have so much success, the top tier guys, they have this knack, they have this way of overcoming adversity. And so many of the fans out there learn from how you guys overcome the adversity that takes place throughout the season. When you reflect on 2019, let's face it, you're one of the top tier guys out there. Can you reflect on any adversity that you went through in 2019 that you're actually going to take that and actually learn from it, just like the fans would after you tell the story?
What's crazy is I've had every tournament win, for the most part, I've had a lot of adversity, and some of it's never been told. Last year at Table Rock, okay, this is knockout round. I'm running up the river, stop on a place, and I felt something, and my lower unit went out. And I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding. This is like early on in the knockout round. So cool thing about MLF is without me worried about, I don't have to necessarily call us, hey, service guy, hey, can you get up here and swap it out? I was sitting there and they're like, yeah, we have a backup boat. They have boats on the water. And if anybody breaks down, they have the opportunity to call up the tournament director and get another boat. And so they brought me another boat, and I fished out of it and qualified for the championship round. The next day, obviously they swapped out the lower unit that night and put another one on, and then winning the tournament. So it was sort of crazy. Like you get stressed out. It took like an hour, so I'm sitting there, I'm falling behind. Those are the things that I've seen it happen like day in and day out. Like as long as you can keep your cool and just chill out and just come up with that game plan. I almost feel like sometimes adversity helps you. I don't know if that's real. I mean, you would think that way, but sometimes I feel like it helps me, like my mindset.
One of the things I've noticed the last couple years with you, I've wanted to ask you is, it seems like you're one of the few guys who, like, when you seem to kind of get in a jam or when you're searching or looking, like, a topwater is one of your go-tos. Like, it seems like you pick up that buzzbait a lot, and you look at all the other guys and like the kind of topwater is one of those, it's either on or it's off, but you seem to use a topwater a lot as a search bait and as a confidence bait, which I think is kind of rare in today's fishing world.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely my confidence. That's a tough thing, but it's also killed me plenty of times. And that's the tough thing about it is I have so much confidence in topwater bait because I just know I can generate a lot of bites quickly and then a lot of big bites. Just gets a better average of bite normally. And at the end of the day, like I feel like I can fish very efficiently. And as long as they're looking up, I can cover a lot of water and be more efficient than any other bait out there.
How do you know if they're looking up?
You got to run a lot of water.
That's a legit question.
That's a dumb question.
We talk about dumb. We'll get into that next, but I feel like that's a valid question.
That is a valid question. So it was sort of funny. Back in the day, I used to fish, tournaments with a buddy back in Indiana. Brian Johnson, we would always he'd flip and I would throw a topwater, throw, a spinner bait or something looking up, crankbait, something moving. So we'd sort of have the cleanup behind me and then he'd catch a lot of fish, but if they were active, it was pretty good. So I just always have had that mentality. If I can make it work, I'm going to. And it just definitely seems to just generate more, quality bites.
All right, hang on, man. I got to ask. And then there's a question on the instant feedback. Here we are, first week of January. What is the magic number water temp wise that you break out the topwater?
58.
Oh, that's high.
Yeah.
58 when I in the spring is when I'll start to really be like, yeah, it's about that time. Because normally it takes them a while. Like in the fall, you can actually catch them at 50 and 48. Because they're in a different, their metabolism's high and they're going down and they basically, and my whole thing is the water temperature's really warm and then as it slows and it cools down, those fish they're still active. But now you're having fish in the springtime that are warm, that water temperature is probably 50 degrees and they might be going in those backwaters and shallow water places and that water has to get up there a little bit before they want to actually break the surface. So now I have at a classic at Hartwell 3 years ago, I caught him on a buzzbait and the water was 51.8. And, so that was a deal. I've not caught him that early in a pre-spawn on a topwater before, but that was probably the earliest I had.
All right. Scott in Virginia wants to know, what's the name of the buzzbaits you use on your totes?
Yeah. So I throw an Accent Game Changer buzzbait. I designed it 5-6 years ago. It's a little small company out of Indiana. And it's just a buzzbait that flat out catches them. They have anodized blades with the gold blade. They actually have them dipped. And it's a buzzbait that's out of the package. I didn't feel like there was a good buzzbait out there that you could just buy off the shelf and throw it and feel really good about. And so what I actually do, that buzzbait, I'll take a little side clipper and I'll clip the sides off of it a little bit, take a little bit of lead off there so I can just thread my tote over it. But then I also throw like a little crawl on the back of it with a skirt. So I can use a skirt sometimes, and if I want it for a tote, I just clip it down a little bit. It's about a 5/16 ounce buzzbait, and I'll cut it down. They have a small blade, a big blade. Most of the time I'm going to go with the big blade.
You said that anodized. How important is the blade color? I mean, you have gold, silver, but then you see some red and black out there. That's something I kind of struggle with.
I just don't think it matters that much. I don't think the blade color matters that much. I think it all comes down to pitch and sound of the bait, and I think that that's more important than anything. And so there's a different sound that an anodized blade will make over a silver blade in a little different pitch. And there's sometimes that I'll throw that over a silver. So it's just sort of like just picking it up and seeing which day. Now, also when the water's dirtier, I might throw a gold one, just because why not? But most of the time, it's just like I'm not like that in tune. Like I feel like it's got to be this. Like the other guys are so caught up with, if it's not a black blade or it's not this, I'm like
that's Jeffrey's.
No, it's not.
You got the black on black with the original lunker lure.
Everybody loves black on black.
I throw black.
It's got to be the flat old rubber for you. You still tie him to the antenna.
Like, whoa.
All right, we got to ask the question because I really want to know the question. You got to be honest with us here. All right? Stupid questions that the media asks. You got 10 years in this thing now. Looking behind you, you've been interviewed a lot. What are some of the questions that you just kind of cringe when during a tournament or after a tournament you're like, dude, that's a dumb question.
Man, I don't know. There's some questions. You sit there and you look at it. Like I just remember, like in the Forestwood Cup, or like I know so many times. I mean, I'm running the bank. I'm running this down the bank as fast as I can, and like I'm fishing new water. And so many times I'm like, do you think you have enough fish to win? What?
That's a good one.
I'm fishing new water. I don't even know what's in front of me. Like I'm just running into stuff and fishing. I don't even know what's going to happen in the next pocket. I don't know what's going to happen in the next cast. I might catch 50 of them tomorrow. I catch 2 of them. I don't know. It's not like I'm sitting there on a school's bass offshore or something. It's like I have no clue.
Because the other option to that is be like, no, dude, I'm maxing out at third.
Oh my!
I got enough fish for third place.
I'm just, so it's just whatever.
That's the main one then, I guess.
Yeah. That's the main one for me personally that I'm like, okay. Yeah. Especially in certain times of the year. Like, I get it. Like, if like you're fishing one area and you're doing this, but this is like day 3 of the cup, and everybody knows what's happening, and like who's doing what, and it's like you get that asked a couple times. It's like,
I was talking to Jeffries before. I think one of the most underrated questions, and I want you to validate this or say no, that's a dumb question, is especially before the tournament and as the tournament goes on. Everyone wants to ask, are you catching them? Are you on them? And I think the key question there is, how well do you understand the fishery? As opposed to,
I would agree, because a lot of times what it is it's not. You see, this is the thing that people don't understand is like you can win practice, but a lot of times winning practice does not benefit you that much. If you're a lot of times I'll just go and I'll fish an area and I'll get a couple bites, and I could dial that whole area in. Now, sometimes can hurt you, but on multi-day events, it actually normally helps. You get a clue. Say you catch them on a rattle trap or a lipless crankbait. Well, then I'll go do something else, and I get a couple bites on docks, and I'll go do something else. And I have 4 or 5 little things that I got going on. And like, if I feel like I know what's happening on the lake and what the fish are doing, and I have an idea of it, I almost don't want to dial in a pattern. The worst thing that I see so many people do is they dial in a pattern. Now, other than maybe in the spring when the fish are up there trying to spawn, I feel like that's a little bit different because you got to it's more area related. But when you are trying to pattern a lake, I see so many people try to just live and die with one single pattern. And, normally like things are all, conditions are dictating what you're doing. And so I like to have 3 or 4 or 5. If I figure out like, hey, there's a few of them doing that, I'm not going to go run 24 more bluffs and try to dial that in. I'll go run that stuff in the tournament, or, so I think that's something that understanding what's happening on the lake is important, but then also sometimes you can over dial into one pattern and it backfires on you because you're not fishing freely enough.
To kind of bring that full circle, I mean, you're talking Brian Thrift and Jacob Wheeler right now are probably obviously in the top 5 in the world. Would you agree, Mark?
Yeah, no doubt.
A lot of similarities between the way thrift fishes and what Jacob just explained.
Yeah, you need to tell him, not now, obviously, explain to him the whole hub and spoke system one of these days.
That's why Brian Thrift kicks everyone's ass.
Have you heard this, Jacob, by chance?
No, you'd have to listen to the show.
Dude, it's brilliant. What he came up with, brilliant. You need to call him and let him explain it.
It's how he can go across the country. I said, there's no way. There's no one, unless, and I'm not even going to go into it, but there's no way that you guys can be so good and go to a lake, put your trolling down and say, I'm just going to figure them out in 3 days and then just go with what I find out. I said these top guys who consistently are in the top 10, 30, 40% of the time, cash checks 80, 90% of the time, have to have a system, a blanket net that they can go to a fishery and they can apply that strategy from coast to coast, because consistency is based on repetition and a system. And you're not going to figure them out because it's a living thing. But if you have your system figured out, it takes a lot of the uncontrollable variables out of the equation and allows you to be more consistent under a different wide variety of variables. Fair point?
It's a very fair point. Yeah, it is. I mean, there's no doubt. But I think you just have to be – I think that the biggest thing that like some of the best anglers are, they're generalists. If you look at Edwin Evers this year, he's a generalist. Brian Thrift, yes, he can catch him offshore, he can catch him shallow. Generalist. He can catch him doing multiple different things. He's specific. I think the biggest thing is running specific things, like specific deals. I might run 5 miles to go flip one boat dock that has a single brush pile on it, and I just feel really good about it. I might go run and slide in and hit one little grass mat. They're being specific on what you're targeting throughout the lake can help you, but then also being general within your techniques. I mean, if you look at Edwin, he's got 15 rods on his deck a lot of times. If you look at Brian, 15 rods on his deck. If you look at me, I have 15 rods on my deck. It's just, you have to you don't get caught up with one thing, and I think that's the biggest thing.
All right, a couple other things. How cool was it to develop your own rod line and work with a large corporation and academy to accomplish that? You've always seemed like you really enjoy the business side of it. Was this something that obviously you worked your way up to do this, and something that you take a lot of pride in?
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of time and effort to put into developing a line of rods that you feel comfortable with, and to do it in a short amount of time. I mean, I spent a lot of time where I'm like, no, this is not right. I'd sit there and I'd get a shipment in from Duckett, and I'd sit there and I'd be like, that rod action is just a little bit light. And I'd go out there on the water and be like, nope, send me through 2 more. I want this one a little bit heavier and this one a little bit lighter. I just need a quarter heighter. Heavier, I need a little bit more on this tip. And it would take a little bit of time. And there was times where you're just constantly, I mean, I'm nitpicky as all get out. I'm like, I want my stuff dialed in. I want it to where on a cranking rod, I made a graphite composite cranking rod because I felt like that is, in my opinion, the best for cranking. And for most cranking applications, graphite composite lets the fish get the bait better. And so I spent so much time trying to get it just to where I like it. Finally did. But I think it just takes a lot of time and effort that goes into it. And, you want to be passionate. If you're passionate about something, I made sure my Topwater rod, perfect, my frog rod, you're just constantly trying to get something to where it's truly dialed in. And I feel really good about where that Duckett fishing, series is at right now.
All right, I want to ask you from a business standpoint also. We've seen here recently, Academy has really stepped up by sponsoring other anglers. The identity-wise that Academy's trying to establish in getting in this seems like that they're just all in. I mean, and what is that like, dealing with a corporation that is not just a fishing company?
They're great. I tell you what, they're probably the easiest company that I work with day in and day out. They're so awesome, and I've had so many great opportunities. I cannot speak and praise them enough for what I've dealt with the last 3, 4, or 5 years of our partnership. They're awesome, and it's cool because at the end of the day, I think what it is you can just tell that bass fishing is such a big deal to them, and that's what they're seeing that maybe Hackney and myself are making a difference, and now Stetson Blaylock is on the team, and I think they realize that how big a bass fishing is, and they're in that footprint where where right there around Texas, Oklahoma, all across the Southeast and creeping up north, that's where the home of but most bass fishermen reside. I mean, bass fishing's big up in the Northeast, big, but that is like the capital area. That is the main area that it goes down in. And I think that, I think that that's something that as it progressed, they didn't know a whole lot about bass fishing. They did not know a whole lot about, at least the people that I worked with day in and day out. Now, all the rod and reel buyers and everybody else, they obviously get it and they know it, and that's their job. But as far as the social media team and the marketing team, they didn't know a whole lot about it. Now they definitely have picked it up and understand it, and it's cool to see. It's definitely really awesome to see.
All right, one little side note on that: do you see the potential, unlike Cabela's and Bass Pro Shops and what very few retailers that are left because of consolidation and bankruptcy and everything else, do you see some crossover in non-endemic companies that are involved with Academy getting involved with the anglers that are representing the Academy colors? Is that possible? Do you think, has that even been talked about?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, that's the cool thing about working with them closely. I mean, if there's an opportunity that comes up, it's something that they see that looks right. They're like, hey, would you want to do this, or would you want to do that, or is this something that you'd be interested in? So they've really looked out, and that's what's so cool about. I mean, that's one of the really nice things about it. Is they're always looking at opportunities. Not only, like, I work with a Real Tree Fishing and Magellan, which is their private label clothing brand. And so I wear a lot of their stuff, but Real Tree Fishing, they license from Real Tree Fishing to get that pattern to put on their clothing. And I wear the Real Tree Fishing pattern, Magellan, sun gear and fish gear. So I think that's something that it all just sort of ties in together, and all of that, the partnerships sort of work together. And that's what's really cool when you can work with one main title sponsor that a lot of the companies you work with and the partners that you work with, it all ties in really easily.
All right, a couple of people on the instant feedback, and I have brought this up before. With Major League Fishing, do you think it would be a good idea, and do you foresee maybe this even happening to where you have sponsored, represented anglers teaming up as a team and competing against each other as a team?
I mean, I would love to have a professional team circuit. Like, I think that is what I grew up with. That is what I love to do. I fished 3 fish tournaments over here. Thursday night dog fights. I fished 5 fish frost bites out of Chickamauga. I obviously fish Major League Fishing, but that is something that's so special. I fished with Connell up the Pan American tournament up there in Cornwall in Canada this year, and that was so much fun. I mean, there's something about fishing with a partner and a teammate and going out there and trying to dial those fish in, and I just get a lot of joy, a lot of fun out of it. You're cracking up. I would love to see that eventually. Maybe it's a one-off event every year and you team up with your partner. Maybe it's I don't know. That would be something that would be so cool to me, to have a one-off, or maybe 2 tournaments a year.
Yeah.
Maybe one in the spring, one in the fall, that went in between where we could fish.
Like Team Academy versus Team Bass Pro Shops.
I'd be in on that.
Who runs the trolling motor there, you or Hackney?
Hey, Hackney probably wouldn't let me have it. He'd be like, listen, you're too herky-jerky, man. You're running too fast. My jig can't get to the bottom. You don't even flipping the 3/4. It's not even getting to the bottom.
I could see him. Man, you just need to ease up a little. Let me soak this jig in this lay down here. There's a big head in there.
Let me just dob this big jig in there. He's in there. I know I'm going to get him to bite.
Yeah.
You can use them power poles, youngin'. They ain't there to look good.
That's funny. All right, one more question from the instant feedback, and then I have one more question. We'll let you go. Jim in Indiana wants to know, do you think that there are more uncontrollable variables in the MLF format compared to a 5-fish format?
Uncontrollable as in, like, there's
variables.
There's a lot, because it's tough because there's so many things going on. Okay. For me, I'm one of the guys who really likes to know where the score tracker is. The biggest thing that messes a lot of people up, because normally you're just out there competing, in past tournaments and FLW and the elite events that I fished. you're out there competing and you have no idea where you stand. You have an idea, maybe potentially, if you're leading a tournament, you went out leading and you're fishing hard all day. But with that score tracker, it's like playing a basketball game. You know where you stand. You know where you're at. And if you're down there by 5 pounds, you have to make an adjustment to cover up that, to make up that 5 pound deficit. And I think that's one of the things that really separates anything. And, obviously there's weigh-ins on FLW and everything else. And then for us, like that score tracker for me is the biggest variable. I think that you really can see guys crumble under the pressure and then rise to the occasion. And I think that it can beat people down really quickly. They fish down through there and like, man, how far am I out? Wait, how far am I out? I'm 10 pounds out. Oh man, I don't think I'm catching this out. So I think there's definitely some of that. There's, that every fish counts over a certain weight, then that's something that's a big deal. And I think there are variables, but at the end of the day, you have to generate enough bites to be up there. And that's really what it comes down to.
80 guys that were doing this for a season for the first time. Obviously, you had it figured out. It was obvious watching you that you have a formula figured out there. You're the MVP. You look at the average weights, the win, where you finish in the end of the year. I mean, not naming names or anything, but out of the 80 guys, how many of them do you think figured out the system and how to properly play the game, and how many were struggling still to adapt to it by the end of the year?
You see, it goes back to what we were talking about, specialists and generalists. See, if you're a generalist, you can adapt, and you can adapt to the conditions, and you can generate enough bites. But if you're a specialist and you're very hard-headed, and all you want to do is flip a jig, you're not going to be able to adapt very well. Yeah, before in a 5-fish format, you could have maybe 2 techniques that you like personally, and you can roll with it. And if you didn't catch one for 6 or 7 hours, that's fine. Then the last hour you got 4 or 5 bites down the stretch, and you had a good bag. In this format, you can't do that. You have to adapt, and that's what you're seeing the generalists do so well, and the specialists drop down a little bit because they're not adapting fast enough.
So is the era of the specialists over? Is the era of Denny Browers over?
I don't think that's going to ever happen, because I mean it just makes it to where, Denny Brower, I do think it's going to eventually, because there's so many young kids out there now that are great fishermen. And normally the generalist will be the more consistent angler. Overall, I don't care if you're in a 5-fish format or if you're in MLF format. Those guys, now the specialist might win one every year, because when it happens, he's going to knock it out of the park. But the guys that are generalists will definitely day in and day out qualify for their championship. There'll be way more guys that are generalists qualifying on either side of the coin.
All right, real quick, JD in New York wants to know, what's your favorite jerkbait rod?
So the rod that I use is one of my rods. It's a 610 medium action rod. I throw like 12-pound Suffix fluorocarbon on it for the most part. Sometimes 14, sometimes 10. It just depends on how deep I am. But I mean, that's sort of like a big thing with jerkbait. Some guys like throwing a 7-footer, and some guys like throwing a 6.6. I like sort of that in between, a 6'10". That's why I made it that. But you have to bump it up for bigger jerkbaits. You might throw a 7-foot, medium heavy or something on a bigger jerkbait. But a jerkbait's definitely a bait that catches some big ones, especially this time of year.
All right, you got anything else behind there that we need to see?
I got so much stuff you guys don't even want to know. So I got to take you through like a little bit. Just looking at some stuff. I mean, all right, so that's actually this is the All-American trophy right here. And that was one of the crankbaits I caught him on. A little old like 2.5 square bill. Caught one of the biggest ones I caught. I got Paul George's signature series shoe. He signed those. I mean, I got the weigh-in slip. That I qualified for the All-American on right here from Kentucky Lake, in a picture of it. That was something that was really cool. I mean, I got so many little things. I got a diary from when I was a kid and what I had. I mean, it's just. I mean, look over here. I got to show you guys. I mean, you got the Indiana Bass Federation Junior Invitational Trail, first place, Tanners Creek, July 21st, 2007.
How'd you catch him there?
I actually caught them on a stupid tube, and I actually caught smallmouth. We went and ran up with a jet boat way up a river and caught them. So, I mean, I got an old plopper. That was the best one. Before plopper, everybody was throwing it. That was one that actually broke. I caught him so good on that. It was like unbelievable.
When did you start throwing that? When did you start? I mean, like 2015, that fall open is when Watson kind of blew it out of the water. But when did you start throwing it?
2011, they had them. 2012.
And you were throwing it then?
Mm-hmm.
But what made you throw it and not be like, this thing looks weird?
Well, I got a couple lights on it, and I realized, I'm like, dang. And then it was sort of under wraps. Like, so at the Forest Wood Cup, that I got, I think, third or fourth in it at Washita. The first day I think I was leading. The second day I was in second or third, and I was leading the third day, going to the final day. Brad Knight won it, and I caught most of them on a plopper, but I never talked about it because it sort of kept it under wraps. And then when Watson won, I got second in that open to Watson out on Table Rock, and I caught him on a buzzbait and a plopper there as well. But I was like, dang, nabbit. I'm like, Watson, be quiet. Like, gosh, dang. Now it's not a deal. But that's the thing. When you find something that's unique, you got to keep your mouth shut. Because it just is what it is. Like, you don't I mean, I spend so much time buying new stuff, just trying to see if there's one bait that'll be different the fish haven't seen the bite. And just like, that's a big deal.
You got one of those now? Obviously, you're not going to say what it is, but do you have a whopper plopper now?
I mean, no, I don't. I don't have anything that's like to that extent. You know, I think that obviously, I think the last 3 years, the biggest, or the last 10 years, the biggest things, obviously, like an A-rig, a chatterbait, and a plopper, the biggest three trending techniques or baits that really made a big difference.
Real quick to wrap things up, I remember that 15 Open that Watson won, and I actually fished that. Coming in on day 2, Wheeler had no idea who I mean, he knew I was from media, but I mean, I was like bundled up in that. It was super cold. Comes up to me on a point, pulls right up to me, and I'm like, crap, this guy's going to cut me off. And he pulls up and he goes, hey, man, I see like you're kind of staying in this area and you're using a spinning rod. I want to work around this point. I just wanted to check with you to make sure you weren't planning on going around that point and if it was okay if I did. And I was like, yeah, dude, have at it. Go for it. And I turned around to my co-angler and I was like, that's how it's supposed to be done. And I always remember that. I mean, sure, you don't remember that at all. It was just the way you were handling business on the water. But that always kind of stuck out to me, like, because I mean, you know, you get cut off a lot and people don't say anything.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. It's always better. I actually went and talked to a high school last night. It's always better to ask and communicate with the other anglers on the water before you ever do anything. That's something I've learned the hard way. So you gotta, take the time to ask.
Second part of that is I had one fish that day. Wheeler puts his trolling motor down and catches 2 keepers and doesn't even bump them, just chucks them back. And I look at my co-angler and went, I really suck.
That's a great story. Hey, man, what boat are you running this year?
A Triton. I'm running a Triton.
Which one?
Triton 21 TRX. Okay. Got it ready to go, man. I'm excited about it. I got it out in the water the other day, actually. For our first event, I ran down to Eufaula to go look around. First event's coming up here in less than a month. So excited a little bit. Nervous because, it's we've got a lot of rain around here, at least where I live, and a lot of the places are muddy and high, and they keep going up and down. So it's going to be interesting. The weather's really warm, so that's going to be a different deal. But yeah, I'm running a Triton. It's running good. And I got it out for a few hours the other day. I got to get some things dialed in. I've been in that garage trying to dial a few things in. I got some cool stuff that I'm going to drop on my YouTube here in about a month. Some cool announcements that sort of pertain to that. So it's sort of some cool stuff.
All right. Very cool, man. Hey, greatly appreciate all the time that you spent with us today, Jacob, and best of luck to you in 2020, man.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for having me on.
All right, man. Take care. See ya. All right. There you have it, Jacob Wheeler. And it's cool stories, man. He's got good stuff.
Big trophy case for a dude who's like 30 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2011 to less than 10 years.
Yeah.
He's been around for, it's crazy.
Did you pick up on what happened to Mark Davis yesterday.
I saw the Instagram and
kinda,
Facebook post there.
We kind of teased it.
He had been with Bass Cat for 18 years, then obviously went to a Skeeter. I don't know if he was with anything else after that, but he's back with Bass Cat now.
Yes, he is, and we're going to have him on, what date is that? January 27th. Awesome. We'll have Mark on. So great first week here in 2020. Next week, another jam-packed show. We're going to have Cliff Crochet on Monday, John Cox on Tuesday, and then Matt Reed on Wednesday. Can't wait to hear the logistics that John Cox is going to have to go through this year.
Talk about the yig and the yang. You got the guy who doesn't fish deeper than 1.5 feet. And then we have Matt Reed on, who's the guy hasn't seen 1.5 feet in 30 years, probably.
Yeah.
He just stays out there and jacks giants offshore.
Yeah. So great week. And then don't forget, Jimmy Houston live in studio right here on January 21st. Can't wait for that one. All right, Matthew, great week. Kicking things off here in 2020. I want to thank all the fans. And feedback has been great. Please continue to subscribe to our show on YouTube. Do the reviews on iTunes for us. It helps us out immensely.
When you running another contest? You haven't ran a contest this year yet.
No, but it's the first week. Come on, dude. All right, everybody, be safe. That is it. We are out of here.